Great to be with you, Andy, and the first time speaking to Ollie.
Great to be here. Thanks very much for hosting us on our own show.
I know it's a little bit weird, but when you sent me that contract offer over, I thought, Alan Carr's not available, neither is Stephen Fry or Jonathan Ross. Let's go for the sumo guy. So it's an amazing, giving me a season ticket to watch Derby County. I tell you, who could refuse such an offer?
Can we? That's the last football reference, mate. We're not doing football because this is a positive podcast, not a depressing one. All right.
Or oh yeah, so I've got to run it, haven't I? I'm waiting for you to say something. I'm suddenly realizing. Okay, so here we are to talk about your latest book, co-authored father and son, Ladult, navigating safely from boy to man. And there's a few questions I've got lined up, but I don't know, the podcast listeners are going to appreciate this, but I am grateful you mentioned me. I mean, there's about 50,000 words and about four of them are devoted to me, right? Which is great. Now, because you've mentioned me, what that also means is I'm in the index. So you get Paul McGee in the index. But
Did you just look for that bit? You just look
right,
for that
no, no,
bit right
no,
at the
no.
start.
I flipping. I'll tell you what, one of the most important insights of this book is the bit you quoted of me on page 29 for the listeners who are wondering where the words of wisdom are. But what concerns me is in the index, page 223, it's got masturbation and then it's got Paul McGee. And that is the first time ever that I have come under masturbation in a sentence. And then it's followed by media motes. So we've got masturbation, Paul McGee, and media motes. I mean, is that the new Holy Trinity or what? I have no idea. But
that wasn't where we were expecting to start this podcast, mate. But I like your originality. Yes,
I like where this is
podcast
going.
like no other.
So let's get into the book itself. Now I've got over that particular issue. Two questions really in one, maybe. What is the book about? And actually, guys, what inspired it?
Ollie, what's the book about? I'll let you take that one.
The book it's self-development for teenage boys. Obviously, Andy is a sort of well-seasoned in writing self-development and in this kind of era, but there was a little bit of teenage boys was a struggle area. With all the new challenges and all the new things going on, it was a little bit of a struggle area. And there is, if you look online at the minute, if you spend too much time online, there is way too much advice around on the internet for teenage boys about how to optimize their lives, how to be a man. And some of the advice is good, but there's also a lot of not particularly good advice. And perhaps teenage boys, they're not always knowing which advice is and isn't the stuff that they should be listening to. So in a world where there's so much advice for them to potentially listen to, but it's hard to sift between what's good advice and what isn't, this is our attempt to kind of provide a bit of clarity and a little bit of an antidote to that.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
and
I
Andy, bringing you in as well, sir.
Well, me and you, Paul, are same generation, and when we grew up in a different era. It's safe to say. Without, I mean, I don't feel old, but actually, I think I must be because the world has morphed into some. I mean, growing up's always been the contact sports, hasn't it? We've always had relationship pressures and exam pressures and growing pains and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you look at the modern, anybody listening to this, the modern world now, we've got AI and we've got a kind of neurodiversity and we've got sort of fake news and we've got this whole manosphere thing that we might come on to later. The whole I think there's a big swirling mass of confusion. And I think that we just wanted to, as Ollie was saying, like cut through some of that. And actually, what even is a man? I mean, there's a starting point in the modern world. What even is a man?
Yeah.
And how can you be the best man? Like the best man, not be what the world's telling you to be, but what you actually need to be, should be, want to be. It's that kind of thing.
And that's why I felt so passionate about wanting to initiate something like this for you to be able to promote your own book. But because if you were to sort of say filling the missing word and you give the people the word masculinity, the most go-to word that people will think is missing in that phrase is the word toxic, and which I find incredibly sad as a male, born a male, still a male. It's like, isn't it really sad that that is a word that is now associated so strongly with masculinity is toxic? So the fact that you've done what you've done, and hopefully is helping young people navigate a lot of different challenges, but is hopefully to also let's raise some more positive male role models. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
I would love
Go
to
on.
say something on toxic masculinity actually, because in reading for the book, what I actually found was so I dived into the what is toxic masculinity, and first of all, it is a thing. It does exist. We all know a
Yeah.
toxic male when we meet one. They're insufferable. They can't take a joke. They put other people down as their way of, they always take banter too far. They put people down to make themselves feel better. We all know what they're like. But diving into toxic masculinity and what it is, because it really boomed into sort of larger cultural consciousness in the sort of mid 2010s. But actually, before it became this thing in sort of internet spheres, I guess, and before it became this thing that had a very, very negative connotation and that was talked about a lot, it actually started in something called the mythopoetic men's movement. And this was actually, I think it was in the 1980s. It was a group of male authors and poets, and it was men who started it. And basically, their idea was that modern society was bringing the wrong traits out of men. So it was started by men for men,
Right.
and their idea was let's reconnect with a sort of more wholesome and organic masculinity by doing things like doing creative activities, doing activities together as men, not to be rabble rousing and boisterous, but to just sort of bond. And it was basically the idea that the modern world, it's encouraging the wrong traits, it's encouraging over competitiveness and dominance over
Mm.
sort of things like group cooperation and leadership. And it was really interesting to find out actually where this phrase came from.
Wow. Andy, any things to add? I mean, I tell you what, Ollie's bright, isn't he?
He's got his mother's brains, mate.
I
He's got his
tell
mother's
you,
brains for sure.
deserves a lot of credit. She really
Yeah,
does. Mom deserves a lot of
He's,
credit.
but he's a bit geeky, as you've seen. He doesn't talk on our level, mate. He's a bit sort of.
I
So if
know.
we drag it down to what I think he was saying, is that
Yeah. Now, for those that don't have a PhD,
is that basically it's just gone too far, hasn't it? It's become a thing that's gone too far. And I mean, I think adolescence, the Netflix thing, I think a load of people saw that, and that was for me, that was a real wake up call, because it made me, I didn't really understand the youth of today. It made me realize that, like when you put hearts and smiley faces and emojis, they mean things to the young people. Like a yellow heart's a different meaning to a purple heart and a red heart. I didn't know that till I watched
neither
Adolescence.
did I.
So God knows what I've been sending people. I mean, so I think it's not just nuanced. I think it's the slightly different language, and language always moves on, and culture always moves on. But is it moving in the right direction? That's the question. And we just wanted to get lads on the right path, really. I mean, it's quite simple. And like Ollie read all that geeky stuff. I didn't read all that. I read all the books aimed at teenage boys that are already out there. And there are some good ones. And I know you've done one that's for the slightly younger age group.
Yeah.
And that's a great one. But there's some that aren't so great. And a lot of them, honestly, have dodged the issues. They don't talk about misogyny. They don't talk about we started with masturbation, right?
Yeah.
We don't.
I know.
They
Building
pretend
a bit
that
of
doesn't exist.
pornography.
Yeah, no, they don't do, but they go nowhere near it. So they'll write that you can buy a book for teenage boy, and it just ducks all the issues. And what Ollie and we had to work really hard, right? Because you and I, Paul, we share the same publisher, right?
Yeah.
And we had to work really, really hard to get a couple of chapters through the sort of censorship thing. Like really had to argue our case, because they wanted. I think if it was left to them, they would have done something quite bland as well. And we open ourselves up, I think, to criticism from an angry mum who might read the book and say, "Oh, and the books have got masturbation and pornography in it." But I think we wanted to do something that didn't duck the issues, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I, full credit to you. I mean, I have read most chapters, I have to say. I initially flicked through it, and then I started diving into it. And that's when I contacted you, because I thought, there is so much work that has gone into this. This is, Andy, your style is quirky, you're innovative, creative. I've not come across Ollie's stuff before, but boy, is there some real meat. And as you rightly say, I mean, that chapter 8, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, which I think is a flipping great title. But I just thought, yeah, you have these are seriously important issues, and I commend you both that you didn't go for the boring, bland, safe option. You didn't regurgitate everything that other people are putting out there, but you've taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and thought we need to talk about it. And it's interesting chatting to my wife about this, and I said, yeah, they address the whole thing around masturbation and pornography and everything, and it's a talking point, and I sort of like commend you for it. But moving on from that, there's 12 chapters in the book. There's loads of stuff from A Man Defined, All Abroad, The Struggle Bus, Teenage Boy User Manual, Terminally Online, etc., Be a Nice Mammal. The usual engaging, quirky, what on earth's that chapter about? But I'll start with you, Ollie. Did you have a particular favourite chapter you actually enjoyed writing with Andy?
Favorite chapter. I think either for me, it's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. I thought that was quite a fun one to write.
Come on, who came up
and
with the
also-
title for that chapter?
I think that was Andy.
That was me, mate. That's a Frankie Goes to Hollywood album, isn't it? From the early 80s. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome.
Oh, of
And then
course.
I think I liked I can't remember which one, but one of the very early chapters where I get to nerd out talking about anglerfish and algae for a little bit before we get on to sort of people. I quite enjoyed that one.
Anglerfish and algae. I mean,
yeah.
You're not selling it with that.
Can I just say, no, the listeners are already pausing the pod and going, get on to flipping Amazon now and get this book. We can learn more about algae. Right. But what about for you, Andy? What was one of your favourite chapters?
Crikey. I like it's something that we riffed on because Ollie, Paul and I wrote a book back in the day, about a few years ago, actually, really good. Happiness Revolution, and in that we spoke about the Richter scale of change, and even back then that book's probably 5 years old, but the needle of change. So if the Richter scale needle didn't measure earthquakes, it measured change. And I enjoyed sort of summarizing that for teenage boys, because even since Paul and I wrote that chapter, change has got faster, more furious. The Richter scale needle is like gone crazy. So I like the idea of trying to put things across, because boys don't read. There's a big challenge, right?
Oh,
there's
totally.
a massive challenge,
Yeah.
absolutely huge challenge. Like, boys aren't really even big readers. So actually, how are you going to get a boy to engage it is not be patronizing and give them what they're expecting, some anodyne nonsense, but give them something that actually is like, oh, cracky, it's got some good stuff in it. So yeah, that's good. And also, I really enjoyed actually. Ollie would submit a chapter, because Ollie give his background in a minute, right? But he's currently knee deep in a PhD looking at attention spans and social media, which is where he gets all his geekiness from. So Ollie would then submit a chapter to me that would geeked out on that. And my job, I really enjoyed simplifying. Simplifying
No,
what
it
he'd
took
done.
18 years to write this book, Andy, having to simplify Ollie's stuff.
What was that phrase you just said earlier, mate, that I went over my head?
What, the mytho-poetic men's movement?
Exactly. You see what I'm up against, Paul. I'm like, I don't think our readers don't need to know that level of detail. But
diving in, how was that actually as a, Ollie, for you? I mean, writing with your dad, not the most common thing to particularly do. What was the experience like for you? And Andy, having your son co-author this book? Well, I'd be interested in you, but let's start with you, Ollie, first.
Surprisingly smooth, I would say. It was very much just, he would say, well, we had our plan, we had our structure of how things would go, and I would send him something that, he would then chop and change and send it back to me, and 9 times out of 10 he'd improved it. But then, you both kind of you tweak things here and there, and by the end of it, I don't know how many times we both read it, but surprisingly smooth. I think I think blending our styles was easier than I thought it would be.
And I have to say also, Ollie, having co-authored a book with your dad, that was a similar experience for me, actually. He's all right, and he's not too you're not too precious, are you, mate? And there were certain things you wanted in the Happiness Revolution that didn't make the cut because you did give me the final shout on, well, at least 2% of the book, certainly.
Yeah, I think, well, co-authoring, as you know, is give and take. And
Yeah.
it's painful. It's painful when you write something that you think is really good and then it doesn't make the cut. But that's it. We did have an agreement, Ollie and I, before we started, that we will remain friends throughout this process, right?
Yeah.
We are
But I
related. Let's
noticed
not
that you're
fall out.
conducting this podcast. You're in different locations in the country, so I understand. Ollie, things don't always work out. You got chucked out of home. You're living in the northwest near Liverpool. Hey, you never mind, mate. Never mind. Moving on.
Doesn't hurt sometimes.
Moving on. What are the differences? I mean, well, I think it might seem obvious, but for you and Andy and me, born in the 60s, Ollie, not sure when you were born in the 90s, perhaps?
Just about.
Just about. Expand on what you've discovered about the really, was there real vast differences in our teenage lives, or was there some commonalities as well?
There's definitely commonalities. As Andy said earlier, being a teenager was always, we've had the stereotype of the moody teenager for a reason, for a very long time. Because teenagers go through all sorts of, your social world becomes a lot more important. There's hormonal changes and you start to think about your future. So it's always been a little bit of a turbulent time. That's well known. But now, terminology that I really like talking about with work and sort of with part of my PhD as well is I would be what's called a digital native. So I don't know what it's like to not have the internet. For as long back as I can remember, there was a family computer and it had access to the internet. I could Google stuff. If I didn't know something, I could immediately satisfy my need to know by Googling it. Whereas you two are what we would call digital immigrants, which was you were born without technology. You didn't have the internet. It wasn't really a thing. It wasn't a thing at all. And then you remember it coming into being. So you're digital immigrants. And it's a completely different way of doing things. When he was younger, Andy traveled the world with my mum on their honeymoon. They did it without Google Maps. I don't understand. If I go and drive to a school, I can't remember my way to get back out of the cul-de-sac without Google Maps. It's completely different. Really, really changes the way you go about so many things.
The A to Z, Andy? What did we do without that?
The A to Z, but we went to Southeast Asia, mate, with a Lonely Planet guide for 6 months, like literally a book. So I don't know how we survived either. Thinking,
but the commonality, but there are still those common challenges that me in the 60s and 70s, along with Andy, that would still be similar for teenage kids today. Would you say, Ollie?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure even when you were teenagers, there was still the challenges of which male role models do you look up to? Because there would have been plenty of not particularly good ones to look up to and plenty of good ones. But there was always that challenge. There was always the finding your way in the sort of social hierarchy, navigating, bullies always existed. People with a chip on their shoulder always will have existed. And being a teenager has always been this kind of socially turbulent
hormones have always existed, haven't they? Sorry,
Absolutely,
I cut you off there, but hormones have always existed, puberty, etc. But obviously what is different is the whole thing around screens and social media. Andy, bringing you in, are they the devil's work?
The devil's work. Well, Ollie said like bullying's always existed. Well, nobody punches anybody now. Bullying's moved online. It's virtual. And if Paul, you do head teachers conferences. I do head teachers conferences. 90% of head teachers issues now are dealing with stuff online, virtual bullying and virtual stuff going on. And that affects teenage girls actually probably even more than teenage boys. I think I think it's pretty awful out there. So learning how to navigate all that. I can't remember what your question was actually, mate, but I think this is where
The Art of Brill are launching a new program, by the way, folks, called How to Improve Your Memory. But anyway, going back to you, Andy.
That's an age thing there straight away, isn't it? Honestly, I think it boils down to this. I couldn't have written the book without Ollie. And I'm not sure Ollie could have written the book without me, because we have got this generational gap enables us to come at exactly the same issues from two different levels of experience. So Ollie grew up, through that pandemic and all that when he was at school. Oh, he's at uni and it all got curtailed. So he's got all that to fall back on. And obviously he's about 26, so he's still a kid. Whereas I'm a bit more gnarled and sort of got some miles on my clock. And I didn't want, if I'd have written it on my own, mate, it would have been how the good old days used to be good old days and everybody needs to get back to them. And it's not about that. We
Yeah.
can't rewind the clock and go back to the 70s and 80s. It is now. It's the here and now. It is full on, whether we like it or not. And I just think that it's that. We're back to the Richter scale needle again. Is like, how do we not just survive it, but how do we thrive in a world that is hell bent on sort of knocking us sideways? So yeah, that's what it is. It is an A to Z. It is an A to Z.
It
Really.
is, as I said, the original question though was about social media and screens. The devil's work.
The devil's work.
Yeah or nay? Oh, it's not as black and white as that.
Nay.
What are your thoughts?
No, it's not the devil's work. I love screens. I love doing this. I couldn't live now without a screen and a mobile phone that allows me to access all the information in the whole world ever. But I think they become if teenagers are now 6 hours a day on screens, that's when it becomes the devil's work. So I think if you're using it to enhance your life, then fantastic. But I think we're back to teenagers have tipped the balance into, I think they're busy doing the wrong things quite often. I think screens are the wrong thing to do. If you're on 6 hours a day on a screen, you're missing out on actual eye contact and human relationships and all the richness of that. So yeah, I think they can build the devil's work, but it's using screens to enhance your life, not to live vicariously through it.
Yeah, brilliant. In terms of then, like you said, you read a lot of books, both of you. What would you say makes Ladult different to other books in this space?
Andy, that one's to you because you did more of the grunt work of reading many of the books in the market.
Well, I don't badmouth too many people's books, but I mean, there's a lot of celebrity books out there, and that's another thing. And you might have climbed some mountains or be really good as a sports person, but actually, and I did read a lot of those. It's almost like you have to be a celebrity nowadays to get a book published. So we got it published against the odds. I'm not a celebrity, and I've not been through any massive trauma in my life that's ground me down.
Apart from the Derby County experience.
Apart from that lived experience every day like, sure, I said we weren't going to mention that.
I know, but
I'll edit that.
You have had lived trauma. You have.
It's an everyday thing. Yeah. So I again, I've forgotten what the question was, but that doesn't matter.
The difference. What's the difference with Ladult and the other books? Do you think? I think part of it is it's really meaty. And it's grounded in research and science and great examples and humour. And you also tackle the elephants in the room. That'd be my perspective on weight, may be different. But do you have any other thoughts to add to that?
I think it's gritty, it's earthy, it feels real. And I think that we said earlier, we haven't tried to duck any punches. We're just telling it how it is. At the risk of getting some bad publicity, actually. I don't want all the parents out there listening to say, "Oh, we mustn't get it. It's just full of masturbation and misogyny." It isn't.
Not at all.
It isn't. I think we put it across in a way that actually teenage boys will be engaged with. That was the challenge.
100%. And there's 12. There are 12 chapters. Yeah. In fact, the book ends with the Cape model. Would either of you like to tell me a little bit about that as we move on from pornography and masturbation and say that actually there's a lot of other stuff in this book as well? So who wants to talk to me about the Cape model? CAPE, for those who can't understand my accent.
It was yours, Ollie. You're going for it. Can you remember what they are?
What was it? Well, it changed. It was what was it? Confidence, attitude,
presence, and enthusiasm.
That's right.
It just came to me. Honestly, I just was like, right, let's write this last chapter. And I thought, I don't mind a little, something to remember it by. And I just thought capes, superheroes wear capes. How to be a kind of superhero version of a man. And I thought, what could I distill that into? What values have we really talked about in this book? What's things that we've really, really gone for? And the early part of the book is definitely about confidence. That's what we link to toxic masculinity. We say that actually we think a lot of toxic masculine behaviors. Really, if you listen to the things that these kind of more toxic masculine, maybe manosphere people will say, a lot of it is very insecure stuff. It's insecurity around their own self-worth. It's insecurity about women, and it all comes from that sort of thing. So we think confidence is a really, really big one. In fact, I actually found a study that found that men who scored higher on toxic masculine traits also scored way higher on anxiety, social anxiety. So there is actually research backing that up. Attitude, that's Art of Brill fundamentals. It's mindset. What perspective are you taking on things? Are you taking a positive attitude into every day? Because the attitude makes a massive difference. Presence, presence. Andy, I'll let you take presence. That's more your bread and butter.
We did change that one, but I think that we're always being distracted from the present moment. We're being either on a screen, we're taken out, we're worrying about the future, we're panicking about what we might have said in the past that was wrong, and we're being dragged away from being in the moment. So presence was bringing your best self into play, and enthusiasm. I like the enthusiasm bit, because if there we're arguing that not just enthusiasm for your subjects, or enthusiasm for life, generally falling back in love with life. And I think that I like the Cope model, because Paul, that I talk about the best leader ever in the history of leadership is Bob the Builder, right?
Absolutely. That great character from history. Yeah.
Yeah. And Bob is basically an ordinary guy, but he's got an extraordinary attitude to life, which makes him the best builder in the world. So what we thought was like teenage boys, everybody already is a superhero, but too many of us are pretending to be normal, and we just want the lads to step into that caped crusader version of themselves.
Brilliant. And although obviously the book is aimed at teenage boys, is there anyone else who you'd say, well, it would be worth you reading?
I think
it's for the parents as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely for the parents, because I'm selling books now at workshops, and every time somebody buys a Ladult, I say, do you know what, lads, dads, read it before, leave it in the bathroom, read it on the loo, leave it in there for your son to read as well.
Yeah.
Because I think I'll learn loads. I really do. I think any male as well, any parent will learn loads.
Well, I'm 61 and I'm reading it, and I'm getting great stuff from it as well. So definitely, as hopefully at some stage a granddad rather than even a dad, I found it of real value as well. Now, there is one final question before I wrap these things up. And there was a fascinating story, and I think this one's for Ollie. Now, I probably won't pronounce his name right, but tell me more about Adrian Paul de Viert.
Adrian Gillen Paul Carton de Viert, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said. But in Warrington, we have a different accent. But yeah, him, so, that bloke, or as we like to just call him, Aid.
So Adrian de Viert was a sort of British, very, very, very sort of, I think he was descended from European royalty.
I think he probably ridiculous. Was, yeah.
But he was described. No, he was an illegitimate son of a king of Belgium or something like that. But anyway, I'm rabbiting. He was described as the soldier who wouldn't die, and I can't remember the full list of all the things that happened to him. But I just heard this story, and I thought that is one. We've already done a podcast on it. We thought that is just hilarious. But two, it is. We talk about resilience, right? And at our trainings, we talk about Sisu and all that hidden reserve that you've got. But I don't know if I've ever heard of someone with not only the resilience of this man, but then to an almost crazy level. So he was in World War I, and he sustained all of these ridiculous injuries, like got shot in the face and ripped off 2 of his own fingers because a doctor wouldn't amputate them, and all this stuff. Got put in prisoner of war camps and all sorts of crazy things. And then and went into the Second World War because he decided he hadn't had enough after the First World War. Completely crazy. Just kept getting up no matter what happened. And then after all of it, 2 world wars, not saying not trying to glorify anything, but after 2 world wars, when asked what his thoughts were, he just was like, yeah, enjoyed it, had a great time.
Let me read. I've got the page. Let me read what happened to him, right? So he got shot in the face, head, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, and ear, was blinded in his left eye, survived 2 plane crashes, and tore off his own severely injured fingers when a doctor refused to amputate them. I mean, there's toughness, there's resilience, and there's...
Yeah. I mean, apart from that, he had a good day.
He enjoyed it.
But the thing is, sort of in wrapping up, guys, you know, I was reading the book, grateful to get an advanced copy, and I actually reached out to you and went, I just think this would be a great idea because I know you do your podcast. I always listen to it. And I know you'll mention it a little bit in passing, but you've never been, you know, I don't think like, you know, up yourself in terms of my book's just amazing and spend half an hour talking about it. But I wanted to give you both the opportunity to actually talk a little bit. We could talk probably hours about what I think is a book for its time. It's as you know, because of your backgrounds, both of you, it's not just you know, celebrities. Let's just come up with the latest, you know, thing that we might think people want to hear. It's grounded in a lot of research and reality as well. It has got those kind of quirky stories about, you know, Aid, as I like to call him, and you know, fascinating insights. And there's some humor. Oh, there's a humor. What's one of those where it goes? Do you mind if I go back to the M word again? We started with it. Maybe we'll finish with it. But where does masturbation ruin your eyesight? I don't know, son. You're in Aldi. I mean, there is humor and there is gravitas all mixed together. It's a brilliant read, folks. It's it'll be Christmas before you know it. If you're a parent, personally, I would recommend Ladult. And if you are, you know, to read yourself, but if you have got a teenage son in your world, or if you are one of those boys who actually does like to read, then Ladult, Navigating Safely from Boy to Man, an absolute essential read. Guys, I want you to congratulate you both on what you've done. I hope it's a real legacy for you. I really do. And congratulations on being on your own podcast. I think you were pretty decent guests.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, mate. Thank you so much, Mr. Paul McGee.